Hello, and welcome back to The Narrow Path. You know, the book of Revelation was not written to entertain curiosity. It was written as a warning to the church, a warning to the world, and a warning about the final rebellion of mankind against God. And in Revelation 13, we're introduced to a figure that Scripture simply calls the beast. Not a myth, not just a symbol, a ruler. A man who will rise to power during the final rebellion of nations, and the world will not resist him. They'll celebrate him. Revelation 13 begins with a striking image. John writes, "I saw a beast rising out of the sea." That little detail, sea, matters. In prophetic language, the sea represents the nations of the earth, a multitude of people, language, tribes, and cultures. And later, Revelation affirms this when we're told directly that the waters represent peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So the beast doesn't arise from isolation. He arises from a sea of humanity, from a melting pot of nations, a center of a world system made up of many people and many cultures, from the heart of what Revelation later calls Babylon. And he doesn't emerge quietly. He rises out of the chaos of nations, out of political turmoil, out of global instability. Daniel saw the same vision centuries earlier. In Daniel 7, the prophet also saw the beast rising from the sea, with kingdoms rising, empires forming, human power emerging from the restless sea of humanity. And then a final ruler appears, a king unlike any other, a ruler who will captivate the world. So let's learn some things about him. Revelation gives us a strange detail about this ruler. In Revelation 17, we are told there are 7 kings, right? John writes, 5 have fallen, 1 is. The other has not yet come, and when he comes, he must remain for a little while. 7 rulers in total. 7 powers connected to this Babylonian system. But then the passage says something even more mysterious. The beast that was, and is not, and is himself also one of the 8, and is of the 7. So, okay, that means the beast is connected to those 7 rulers, meaning he's one of the 7 rulers. He belongs to them. He is part of that line of power. But somehow he becomes the 8th, which suggests something a little unusual in the timeline. At some point, he's present among the 7, he's absent for a time, and then he returns again as the 8th ruler. Revelation says this interruption is only for a short time, then he returns. And when he does, he's no longer just one ruler among many, he becomes the central authority, the final king of the system, and the world begins to rally behind him. Revelation 13 describes a moment that shocks the reader. The beast appears to receive a mortal wound, a wound that should have ended him, but the wound is healed. Later, Revelation clarifies that the beast is the one who received the wound by the sword and yet lived. A sword wound, a violent injury. Something that should have ended his power, but instead of destroying him, it elevated him. And Scripture says the whole world marveled and followed the beast. The nations begin to look at this ruler with fascination, with admiration, with loyalty. They begin to say, who is like the beast? Who can make war against him? A wound that should have ended him becomes the moment that would lift him up before the world. And the mention of the sword kind of reminds us of another moment in Scripture in the Garden of Gethsemane, the night Jesus was betrayed, when Peter drew a sword and he struck the servant of the high priest and he cut his ear off. But, Jesus didn't celebrate violence, he healed the wound. Christ had restored what the sword had damaged. Christ heals through mercy. The beast rules through the sword. And the world is going to have to choose which one it wants to follow. Revelation says the beast is given a mouth speaking proud and grateful things, great blasphemy. Daniel saw the same ruler. Centuries earlier, Daniel 7 says he speaks great and arrogant words. He exalts himself. He magnifies himself above others. So we know this ruler won't be humble. He's going to be bold, confident, convincing. He'll present himself as a solution to the chaos of the world. And the world will believe him. And then Revelation introduces another figure tied to the beast, the false prophet. Scripture says he appears like a lamb but speaks like a dragon. He looks gentle. He looks trustworthy. He represents himself as someone bringing solutions for humanity. But the voice behind him carries the spirit of the dragon. Deception often arrives wrapped in compassion. It promises safety, progress, a better future. But it leads the world toward worship of the beast. The false prophet performs signs and wonders. Revelation says he even calls down fire from heaven in the sight of men. Through these signs, he convinces the world to create an image of the beast, an image that the people of the earth command to honor. The Revelation says something kind of astonishing here. The image is given breath. It speaks. And the world begins to look toward it. Day and night, they labor after it. Day and night, they marvel at the beast and his image. Think about the time we live in. For most of human history, an image that could speak would have sounded impossible. But today, we live in a world of artificial intelligence, digital likeness. Images can be created instantly, images of leaders that can be made to say almost anything. Technology capable of broadcasting an image to the entire world in seconds. Scripture doesn't exactly say how the image will function, but it describes a world captivated by it. Jesus warned that deception would be powerful. In Matthew 24, he said, false messiahs and false prophets perform great signs and wonders. So convincing that if it were possible, they would be deceiving the very elect. That means the deception won't fool only the careless. It'll challenge even the most religious, even people who believe they understand Scripture. The frightening part is this: the world won't see it as deception. They'll see it as progress. They'll see it as hope. They'll see it as a solution to the chaos of the earth. Revelation says the inhabitants of the earth begin to worship the beast, not just politically, spiritually. The nations rally behind him. The world marvels. And Scripture says something chilling. And those whose names are not written in the book of life will follow him. This isn't just political deception, it's spiritual blindness. But later in Revelation, we learn the beast is connected to Babylon. Babylon represents the system of world and luxury, commerce, power, influence, a global culture built on pride and rebellion against God. And the beast stands at the center of it, the ruler of the final Babylon, the king of a world system that exalts itself above heaven. Jesus warned that deception would increase in the last days. False signs, false wonders, false saviors, leaders who promise peace, leaders who promise stability, leaders who promise to fix the chaos of the world. Scripture also gives another warning. In 1 Thessalonians 5:3, we're told, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them. That means the final deception may not arrive dressed like tyranny. It may arrive dressed like order, like security, like a leader who claims he can finally stabilize the world. And the danger is not that evil will appear evil. The danger is that evil will appear heroic, charismatic, confident, convincing, a figure the world rallies behind, a ruler the nations admire. That's the spirit of the beast. Revelation warns the church, don't be asleep when these things begin to unfold. Just remember, Revelation doesn't end at the beast. The beast rules for a short moment, just a short time. Then the heavens open. Revelation 19 says Christ returns, not as a suffering servant, but as the King of Kings. And the beast that the world once worshiped is defeated in a moment. Him and the false prophet are captured and killed. Because human power can never be replaced by the authority of God. If you haven't come to Christ, this is where it begins. Realizing it's not with performance, it's not with religious image, with surrender. Jesus said, no one comes to the Father except through me. Turn from sin and trust him. Follow him while there is still time. Thank you for joining us on the narrow path. Walk carefully, stay awake, and remember, let his will be done.